And we are live on Oz Property Investor. We bring the big names, and tonight we're going to have even more fun because we don't have a guest to hold us back. No, guests don't hold us back. We love guests. Please come. How you going anyway, Joe? Joe's not sold on the guests, so more
Nah.
solo
Look,
sessions.
I'll keep them. We'll have them if we can have them. You know, if anyone wants to come on, say g'day. No, I'm excited, mate. This is going to be a good little sesh. This is going to be a good little session. Rarely do you and I get the time to riff on ideas and riff on things. But tonight is the night, mate. How are you? More importantly,
I'm fantastic. It's been a beautiful day, a winter's day here in Sydney or Wollongong, where I don't know. I just say Sydney because some people don't really care about Wollongong, so that's okay for them. But now going really well. Loving life, loving everything. Just enjoying property, all that sort of thing still as well. So good news will come up in a couple of minutes as well. We're going to talk about the RBA, so stay paused, or stay tuned, not stay paused. Oh, there's a bit of a giveaway there as to what we're going to talk about. But Joe, how are you going? What's happening? How you been knocking them dead? Hopefully not knocking them too dead.
making it happen, mate. Making it happen. I wanted to chat to the types of property strategy out there, and I think we're having a bit of a chat off air about this, and you coined it really well. It's like, what is when you first start a property investment journey? There are so many different things getting thrown at you, and it's like, well, should I be doing subdivision? Should I be doing renovation? What should I be? Should I be going down the off the plan apartment? Should I go into the house and land package? Now, we're not going to talk to those assets because we've already probably made ourselves very clear that we do not want to be buying those types of assets. But is renovation a strategy that we should be using? Is subdivision a strategy that we should be using? And what is all these strategies and how do they all connect? What are the pros of doing a subdivision? What are the cons of a subdivision? What are the pros of a renovation? And I guess it kind of breaking it down so that people can understand that they're not all that difficult. Like, although it looks scary to do a subdivision, or it looks scary to do a renovation, it's well within what you're physically capable, well, maybe not physically, but capable of doing. But yeah, I feel like you had a great intro for this, Jeff. Give us the run through. What are we going to cover?
Yeah, so for me, when I first started, I was saying to Joe when I first started my property investing, didn't know about him, but you sort of you go for either the capital growth or the yield. Like those are the kind of things you focus on. You sort of say, okay, I want this amount of I want this amount of passive income, or I want sort of this amount of capital growth or this amount of yield. Like I want a 5% yield, whatever it is. But little did I didn't even consider, okay, should I be buying a property that is going to need a reno, or do I want something that I can potentially develop down the track? And I suppose that's where I wanted to sort of say, and we're piecing together in some of these sessions all of this kind of things you should be considering, because if you don't factor this in, if you need to, or if you really have to get capital growth, and if you buy and for whatever reason you don't see that capital growth, then how are you going to be able to achieve that goal of in 10 years time of 100K passive income or whatever it is? So I think I didn't even factor that in when I was buying my first investment property. So I thought would be great to unpack these kind of strategies, property strategies, which I think are important consideration when buying any property, like what your purpose is for that property.
Yeah, I totally agree. What's the quote of the week, mate? What's your little quote of the week for today?
So, quote of the week is, for me, I think it's a bit poignant because we're talking about strategy and all that sort of stuff, and strategy is in action is just as important. But mine is, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, which is by Ben Franklin. So, for me,
I feel like we've had that like 800 times. Like,
me,
I have heard that quote like 3 times on this podcast. If anyone else is listening and that has listened to most episodes of this, because I know there are some people out there, how many times has Jeff used that as his quote of the week?
Probably once. I don't know. I'm pretty.
I'm gonna say 3 times.
We should have an archive, but yeah, that's I really use. So how many times have you used? Yeah, but no. What's your one, Joni? Or what's happening?
Well, no, I do agree. It's a great quote. Tells me that we need to refresh our quotes. I actually wrote mine down from a book I was reading. So commitments is a statement of what is. You know what you're committed to by your results. The results is the proof of your commitment. Now, I guess that's kind of taken out of context. It's all about talking about business and Yeah, it's a business book about, what's it called? Who, not how. It's who can help me achieve the result that I'm looking for, rather than asking, how do I achieve a subdivision? Actually, that's going to be rolling in nicely with today, because it's not how do I complete a subdivision? It's no, who can help me with a subdivision? Who can help me identify the council zonings, the minimum lot size, the minimum setbacks, all of that stuff. There are who's out there that understand the thing that you require. But the result is the proof of your commitment. So you need to commit to a thing before you happen and before you get the result. So that's my quote of the week, because I really, really like these strategies that we're talking about here. It's very easy to get a set and forget type of property, but it takes time to think, okay, well, I'm going to suffer a little bit in the short term because I'm going to have to renovate this property. I'm going to spend a little bit of time up front, but down the line, that's going to give me equity, and that equity is going to allow me to continue my portfolio journey, so I don't have to keep saving for a deposit and waiting for that organic growth of the property. That's my quote of the week.
Yeah, man, that's fantastic. Like it was very, very well, at least 7 times in the last 2 months, at least 7 times. So no, I do love it, because I love a good strategy, good plan. And I was getting ready for tonight's session, and I didn't 100% feel ready, but I just don't know if you ever feel ready. So planning and strategy is great, but you actually need to take action. You need to get in the ring and get it done. Otherwise, you're just going to keep sort of turning the wheels without actually getting anywhere. So on that note, Joe, should we get into the first ad, and we'll talk about our special segment for Jeff and Joe?
Oh, let's do it.
The amazing thing with commercial property investing is that in most cases it's cash flow positive from day one, which means that you can drive those profits towards paying down the debt. There are instances with commercial property investing where you can actually have the property pay itself off over 10 years, which is absolutely crazy. With commercial property, you get massive net yields, so you can expect anywhere between 6 to 10%. And as we've seen in the current boom, these properties not only provide large cash flow, they do certainly grow wildly in value too. Now, with big rewards comes some risk, and this is why you should de-risk your investment as much as possible. And the way you do that is with expert due diligence. And this is why we highly recommend people hire professionals to help you along in your investing journey. Steve Polisi of Polisi Property is one such expert. Being a chartered mechanical and structural engineer in a past life, Steve draws on his analytical and mathematical skills to do that expert due diligence for you. With 6 years experience in the space, Steve has over 1,200 property transactions under his belt. He's the guy you want in your corner, crunching the numbers and finding the best properties in the best locations, along with ensuring that you avoid the mistakes. Steve has actually even written the book on commercial property investing in Australia, and not only is it a bestseller, I believe it to be the most comprehensive in commercial property investing on the market today. He's been generous enough to give us a massive discount for our audience of 50%. So use the code OZPROP, click the link below, get a copy today, and start learning and getting on your commercial property investing journey.
We are, Joe. We are back.
We are.
Just sent you a link. But no, so and we are, instead of talking about our first property and all that sort of good stuff, let's unpack the momentum. I was going to say momentous, so maybe not as momentous, but while we're here, people, we'll get to Q&A as well. So throw your questions, throw your comments, all that sort of stuff. But the big news, the RBA paused yesterday, Joe, and Joe called it. He said that, what did you say? Something about buying Gucci's, or was that you, or was that somebody else? I don't know. It was Greg who followed up with a comment on you.
Someone
but
else.
You said that they had to surprise us and keep us guessing, which is why you suggested there would be a pause.
That is it. That is exactly it. The sentiment. I was trying to bring up a chart before, but the sentiment is what kind of helps drive a lot of value in certain markets, and you see it a lot in share investing, where people have money, they spend the money. It's the same as what's happened in the property market. The government printed billions of dollars. That supply had to go somewhere, and it went into crypto and the little pictures of things, and it went into property as well. And all of these things started to grow in value. So that's what happens when you print billions of dollars. Things rise. So I called it, because the reason I called it a hold is because the government, the RBA doesn't want to say, great, we're going to start inflating and then we're going to just hold, and then we're going to go down. They want to kind of keep us on our toes so people don't get too exuberant. It was funny. As soon as I saw on news.com.au, RBA holds rates was pretty much the subheading. The headline was, get ready for a buying bonanza or some nonsense like that. It's time to buy. Everyone get excited and start spending your money wildly. So the RBA is just trying to tamper that expectations, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts about it, Jeff? I know you go real deep into this stuff.
I wouldn't say super deep, but maybe a little bit more than what I should. But I was the thing that kind of froze me a little bit is that they said that they were focusing on kind of getting inflation down and all that sort of stuff, and they sort of, like, inflation still hasn't really, like, the headline inflation has come down, but core inflation is still quite high. So the difference is headline includes some volatile items. So I just think that they're sort of they're all over the place. Like, it's like you go out to you've got your friend who you go to a party and they just say, oh, I'm going to have a really relaxed night, and next minute they're on the table dancing. You're like, well, what's going on there? What you're just contradicting what you said, friend. And so I just don't.
Phil.
Phil. Yeah, there's not a lot. I don't feel there's consistency. Yeah, but that's kind of why I was a little bit surprised. Like, I sort of, yeah. So I can understand why they did, but it would have made more sense to me. I don't agree with them focusing too heavily on inflation, because it's such a lagging thing. So that's why they probably can argue that they did put it on hold. But yeah.
Well, for me, it's purely monetary policy, right? It's all about money. Have a look at what happened in the US. So this is the US inflation is the blue line. And you can see in 2022, US inflation was massive, like at 8.5%, 9%. But what happened was they're like, oh my gosh, inflation is starting to rise. You know what we got to do? We've got a lagging indicator here. We've got to raise our interest rates. So they just booted interest rates up to 5%. And as you can see now, in the US, inflation is at 4%. So they only have a 4% inflation rate. So this monetary policy of interest rates going up has fixed it. It's fixed the inflation rate because people can't spend as much money. And the exact same story is playing out in Australia, except it's on a different kind of trajectory. We had we're
lagging a little bit behind the US.
Yeah, we're just a bit slower down here, and that's okay. But for me, it's like we've done what we've had to do. It has already happened. We fixed it. We fixed inflation. We have spent, we've raised our interest rates massively. So it is starting to trend down. And I imagine that trend is going to continue exactly like it has done in the US. So I think increasing interest rates even further would just be a bit of a pointless exercise and maybe put a little bit more of a financial strain. Now, for Australia, the reason why I think we've held on for so long is because we had 20% saving rates. As a country, we were saving 20% of our pay packets. And that time over this period, we were just spending the same. So it's only up until about, I will say now until maybe 6 months is where people are really going to start feeling a bit more of a pinch. But yeah, that's my view on inflation. Like, just look at the numbers. I don't know.
I like it, Joe. Yeah, I mean, it's that's why I suppose it's good to we aren't necessarily. I don't play an economist on the internet, but yeah, it's just interesting to kind of sort of follow it, and I don't foresee that they can't really just continue to go too much higher, because I've been listening to this kind of for about 12, 18 months, and probably finish on this point. They've sort of been saying that you need to get probably roughly to get inflation sort of under control, you have to get interest, or the cash rate at least, up until around where the sort of inflation is. So they're getting close to intersecting. I mean, they're not quite there because headline inflation is at I think it was 5.6 this month. So, and the cash rate's at 4.1. So they're getting a lot closer. So they're sort of trying to get us close to that. And once that sort of happens, yeah. There you go.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's what you're saying there.
It's kind of that's what they did there. So they sort of got it, and now it's just kind of overtaken. So
We haven't quite pushed beyond that yet. So maybe.
Exactly. That's why it might not be sort of finishing up. That's a very rudimentary. It's not that simple. So on to tonight's session. So what we are going to talk about, we're going to talk strategy. So when the word strategy evokes so many different meanings for many different people, but if in this context, we're going to talk about the property strategy is in, are you looking at a set and forget? We're going to unpack what that means to us, because everybody's set and forget is completely different, maybe different. We'll talk about different types of renovations and also a couple of different development type strategies. So I think the purpose of that is so people can then sort of say, oh, that makes sense. I can sort of apply that. But also, interestingly, we're going to throw some deals at you as well. So some of these are quite recent and some will be a year or two ago as well. So I think that'll add a bit of context to the conversation as well.
Yeah. I think it's important to actually see what we're talking about here, because all day you're sitting on real estate trying to find this cracking deal, but what type of deal are you trying to find? It would be good to illustrate it and see, hey, this is the type of deal that you should be looking for. And here are the pros of going after this type of asset. Should we all be going for a set and forget? And that's kind of where we start our journey. It is on the set and forget journey. So what would you consider a set and forget, Jeff? How would you kind of roll with a set and forget in your if you were to think about one?
For me, I think I feel a set and forget is probably the last property my mum bought. It was definitely a set and forget. It was a nice sort of very structurally sound. Didn't need any effort or work applied to it. Didn't need any paint. Didn't need any carpet. It was move-in ready. Had a lot of owner occupied appeal. There was almost minimal effort required to bring it up to standard. So it's basically is the finished product or the product that requires minimal maintenance. That's my kind of that's what I picture it as. Do you want to bring up some pictures, Joe? Have you got? Here's one you prepared earlier. You cooked earlier.
No, not really. I haven't prepared any set and forgets because I think we all understand what a set and actually here's a couple of set and forgets. Yeah, I've got some. It was that easy. It was that easy to find. No, a set and forget for me is just a type of property that is just, you don't have to do anything. It's move-in ready. It's tenant ready. It requires no renovation. It needs no upkeep. To lift this property's value, you need to buy it under market value. Well, you're relying on the market, but you also have to buy it incredibly well. So to really boost, so let's say you the market grows 5%. That's not really it's going to take a while, because my goal is to buy the best property in the best location at the best price for my brief, for what I actually need it to be. So a set and forget for me are these type of things. I mean, they're all like, this is probably the best thing, right? Just a low set brick on don't buy it on such a small land size, but small little property, brand new, sweet little kitchen, great flooring. It looks really, really nice. This is what I call a set and forget. I do not necessarily like buying the set and forget type of properties because you're waiting for the entire area to grow. So the pros are tenant ready, move in ready. It's an absolute blast. You don't have to do anything. You're never going to have to, like, a tenant is not going to call you and complain about, the paint on this thing. They're not going to complain about the flooring. They're not going to complain about the astrology on the walls. They're not going to complain about anything. The only thing you have to deal with are, plumbing and those type of issues. So for me, this is a set and forget. I feel like we don't really need to go too deep on set and forgets. But what are the kind of pros, cons for you for set and forget, Jeff? Have you got any?
Well, for me, the pro is I don't have to put as much effort into doing any maintenance sort of relatively quickly with the property. In theory, I mean, yes, they can be sort of defects pop up here and there. Yeah. So there's no guarantee that you're. We should go to Adelaide, Joe. Like, what are we looking in this bloody house?
Just like new homes. It was just
new homes.
That's what like. I guess you can buy. Don't get me wrong. You can buy.
Yeah.
Let's go old Ranello while the button's there. So, like, is this a set? This would be like
that's a great. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the one. I mean, yeah, that's a nice. That's been renovated. So somebody else has already come in and turned. That's a really nice looking property as a set and forget. So. Yeah, I mean, to me, the benefit is it's it's yeah, as I said, it's exactly as it sort of suggests. It's set and forget. You don't have to think too much about it. I don't even know any other kind of advantages to that one. I mean, I just I don't. Not a huge.
Yeah, advantages. Really know your market and pick your market incredibly well. So like this type of thing, it'll set and forget. Like you can't add value to it, so you just have to organically.
Well, I'd argue that's an ugly duckling, Joe. Are we going to have a because of those? I mean,
yeah, you just set and forgets. They do their thing, but you're relying. So my goal, as I said, buy the best property in the best location. But my goal is to get my deposit back because I've just spent the last 5, 6, 8, 10 years trying to save that 150, 160K, 100K, whatever that number is for you to get my first property. I want to get access to that money as quickly as possible. So for me, I like to add value to the properties to extract that equity back out. So that's where these other strategies become quite handy. And that's
should we talk about some cons, Joe, to set and forgets?
Well, yeah, I think we have. Like you can't get your equity back. Yeah, and get that.
It's harder. You're and I think you're essentially relying on generic market driven capital growth for because whereas you kind of unless you are buying very well, so that's kind of a thing as Joe has alluded to. You have to sort of understand what value is in the market. The other thing is you are going to be competing probably with emotional owner occupiers.
Yeah.
So as an investor, you don't really want to be doing that. Like you want owner-occupied appeal or the ability to create that. But at the same time, if you're competing on these finished set and forget products, you're going to see the young family come in, see they're going to put their bed in that corner and they're going to put their lounge against that wall and they're going to visualize it and they're going to say, this is the place for us. And they're going to pay 30, 40, 50,000 more than what you're willing to pay. So you're potentially going to buy one of these properties, you're going to be in for potentially a longer search.
Absolutely. Your goal as a property investor is to set the limit of what that price needs to be. You look at the data, you look at the research, you look at the analytics. Now, actually, I was talking to someone before. They're like, oh, how do you find, the question was, how do you find comparable sales? And their answer was, oh, I just look on real estate and see what's sold. A really, really good tip to find out what is the most top of the line recent sale is to call up all of the under offer deals. So all you do is you go onto real estate and you can see this property here under offer, this property here under offer, this property here not under offer, but you know what I mean. So then all you do is you call up Joe, this guy, however you say his last name, and say, hey, Joe, there it is. Hey, Joe, how's it going? Yeah, look, I see you've got, 5 Cantina Court available. And he's like, oh, yeah, actually, that's under offer. Oh, silly me.
It's always 60 minutes ago. It's always under offer an hour ago. It's like, oh, just under offer, It's like, makes you feel like you're like, oh, crap, I just missed out.
But then and then you speak to him and then you can see like, oh, this was listed. I mean, this one wasn't listed for 500, but let's say it was listed for 500, it actually sold for 520, whereas all the comparables look for 500. So if you're buying in a competitive market, I'm seeing a lot of people buying in WA. There was someone that posted recently, oh, I see this property here at 350,000. And I'm like, the fact that you've posted this tells me that this property's already sold for, 380, 400, but you're new to the area. So you've got to kind of feel that. So you just call up the most recent under offers. But my point to that was you set as an investor, you're a limit. What is my walk away price? Now, what's going to happen with a set and forget property is someone is going to walk into that property and yours is 520. Someone's going to walk in, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, look at these curtains. This is amazing. This flooring. So they're going to go 450, 460. Oh my God, look at the paint. It is perfect. 480, 500. 520, 580. And then all of a sudden you're down here where you see value and they're up here. You've got to walk away. So you want to try and look at some of these more ugly, less attractive options, because if you look at them on a spreadsheet, they are golden and unreal. But if you look at them in person, it's like, oh God, I don't really like the look of that thing. But there's there's money. Pretty isn't profit, as Todd Sloan would say.
Todd Sloan. I'm sure he does get plenty of loans. So on that, I think that leads us on quite nicely to the ugly duckling. Now, this is Joe's term, and I'm not going to. I mean, I don't know if it's Joe's
turn. I don't know if it's my turn. I don't know if it's my turn. Boots on the ground. I might just get away with that one, but I don't think I can claim ugly duckling.
Yeah. But if you've got any questions about any of these strategies or executing or just the tips and the tactics, but going back to that kind of under offer, the reason why that, particularly in a moving market like pockets of WA, even sort of Adelaide and now sort of Brisbane as well, sort of it's starting to get a little bit heated up that way in parts as well. But the reason that's important is because properties they only come out as sold probably around 6 weeks after it's actually, depending on the settlement time. If it's a cash unconditional and they settle in 20 days, it could be a bit quicker. But it's at least 6 to 8 weeks after. So you're looking at a property that's actually been transacted sort of 6 weeks ago. So that price is probably largely out of date. So you need to understand, if it's just under offer, then that's probably as close as you're going to get to something that's a price that's realistic. But 100%. Ugly Duckling. So that's so Ugly Duckling for me, and Joe and I had a discussion about this the other day. Ugly Duckling versus Renovators Delight. Joe's going to talk about Renovators Delight, but the Ugly Duckling is something that only has. If you want to bring up a property, Joe, and I'll talk to this one.
Hang on, okay.
I've got to turn Slack, but while Joe's bringing it up, I'll talk to it. So it's something that only needs a minor sort of renovation. So this one, I'm sort of being a little bit cheeky. You could argue this is maybe a Renovator's Delight, but this I consider, so it's a serviceable kitchen. Like, you could use that, and it needs a carpet and a paint potentially. I mean, look, you could move into that, but you probably need to do the carpet and do a paint. But the property, I mean, bathroom, actually, that's maybe more a Renovators Delight, isn't it, Joe? I don't know. Well, let me get away with that one, please.
Very tight. It's a very tight space.
Yeah, I was. I'll actually throw some more disclaimers about this particular property I'm going to be talking to.
Big disclaimer: none of this is financial advice. Go out there and do all your own financial advising. We're not financial advisors, and this is all just two mates chatting about property. Okay, so why is this an ugly duckling, Jeff? Why is this ugly?
So it's, as you can see, it's not pretty. Like that's sort of that. It's quite tired. Like, the carpet's old, the walls need painting, and as you can sort of see, like the kitchen, like it's just not like it doesn't appeal to me. I'm not excited by. Like, it's serviceable. Like, you could easily live there. Like, even the bathroom, like, yeah, it's fine, but it's. Like the oven is ugly as well. Not the oven sort of needs doing as well, so it's old. But it works. But you could live in there.
Yeah. Another example is this, right? Like, this is a bit of an ugly duckling in itself.
Yeah, I'd argue that's a less ugly duckling. Honestly, that's probably about a 2 or 3.
A lesser ugly duckling.
Somebody's renovated that.
It's got a blue wall here, a purple wall here, a green wall here. Yeah, I don't feel. Like, I feel like you could jazz this up a little bit to get it, get it quite. Like, the bathroom's really dated as well.
It is, and that's where I think but that's where it comes down to what we were just talking about with Joe. It's really about understanding what is the value of said property and what is the walkaway as well. Because I'll sort of, in doing a couple of those comparisons, we'll talk to those. But the benefit I see. Well, what do you see the benefit of Ugly Duckling show?
Well, that emotional bond, right? That emotional connection where someone's going, we're at 520 where we see value. Someone walks in there, they don't say, oh my gosh, look at the carpets. Those people turn around and go out before they even put their offer in. So all of a sudden, you're starting to get like a realistic value for what this thing is actually worth. And at the end of the day, it doesn't cost very much to fix a new paint job, depending on where you are and the contacts that you have. Will be from $6,000, maybe $5,000 to $9,000, depending on what is needed. So for me, it's like getting access to equity. How do we get equity quickly? So that's some of the pros. And
the other thing is, you can even potentially increase the rent as well.
That's true. Very good point.
I mean, you need to verify that doing that work is actually going to increase because doing, like, let's just say, fixing the patio at the back, I mean, unless it's falling down, yes, that's going to add value. But if you're just sort of painting the patio at the back, I don't think that's going to add $10 rent per week to that. But if you fix up the kitchen and make it more serviceable, add more space or add an air conditioning or change the carpets, I think people are going to then say, okay, I'm going to pay a little bit more for that property in rent per week.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. Yep, I totally agree. I think also another good little point for these type of deals, maybe not these type of deals, but how to get like undervalued and under market properties is get a property with a tenant in place. Because like
look at that one that I sent you, Joe. Have a look at that first.
one?
That Baron, number 3 Baron, I think it was.
9
I know
Baron, yeah.
Crater. It was Crater. The one.
Was it Crater?
Yeah, Crater. Just to show Joe, illustrate Joe's example. Number 3 Crater.
Oh yeah.
I think you closed it.
Yeah. Wait, 3
Yep.
Crater.
So go down and look at the ad for this, and look at that, paying $330 per week until, and this was sold in, when was it sold, Joe? If you go up, it was sold in April. So the tenant was in place for at least 4 or 5, I think it was 5 months.
So the yield on that, so that sold for 387,000. That is a 4.4% yield.
Exactly, and I think that's part of the reason, because that should be renting for around $400 roughly, based on the condition of that property.
Yeah, I reckon it would be around about the 400 to 420 is where you could expect to get rent on this property.
And an owner occupier is going to look at it and say, "Well, I'm not going to wait. I'm not waiting 4 or 5 months to get access to that property." So and that's where this one. I thought this is potentially a great buy, and to me, I saw comparables. Even this is a couple of months ago now.
We got this one. This is a comparable, isn't it?
Yeah, and that sold in February. This is obviously a lot nicer property.
Okay.
That Cosgrove is a different one altogether.
So Cosgrove, Hennessy, 3-bed, 1 bath. So we've bought a 3-bed, 1 bath in the 6th of April. Now we didn't actually buy this one.
No, we didn't.
385, 3-bed, 1 bath on 641 squares. But now this one with a tenant without a tenant in place looks slightly nicer. Look at that massive pole out the front of it. It's not ideal.
Yeah. I mean, it's still got ugly.
Ugly.
I mean, it's less ugly though. I'd say it's probably a little bit bigger, if I'm fair. Yeah. But
that's
a nice bathroom.
That's gone for 465,000. So we've gone from 385 to 465. That's $80,000 difference.
And it's not to saying that spending 10 or 15K is going to take that to 465. I would say if you got $2 for the $1, so if you put that other one, what's that? Yeah, that one's even a little bit nicer again. So if you did up to that standard, so I think that's a reasonable comparison between. Yeah, it'd likely be worth about 420 to 430. So putting 10 to 15K into that one around in Crater is likely to give you, let's say, 30K in equity.
Yeah. Also, another good thing to look for is horrendous pictures, because
these pictures are horrible.
Some bloke with a phone.
The lighting
is marketing. It's just his iPhone. So that's another good thing to look out for. That is money. But this agent that, I mean, no offense, Ian, but if he's taking photos like this, he's not paid. The vendor doesn't want to pay for a photographer. They're not gonna list it as well. This here is a professional photographer. It looks good-ish.
Yeah. I can even just look. That's even better for. Like, how does that photography like? I imagine it definitely doesn't look that good in person. But no, I suppose I've literally doing research on this for a couple of hours. So I would say that just because you're looking at those photos, and you really need to actually go and understand the pockets of a suburb and do all that sort of boots on the ground stuff as well. Understand, is there actually really something wrong with that property? Because there potentially could be. So it might not be an ugly duckling. It might be a kind of detonate and rebuild potentially. So just be cautious of that. That's what I would say.
So not a detonator.
Yeah, we don't want to. I mean, unless, look, we'll talk about that later. We will talk about that later, John. In developments.
Okay. Yes, we can start chatting about developments.
No, you still got to talk about Renovators Delight, Joe. Next up.
Renovators Delight.
Oh, yeah. But what I want to say, what are some of the cons of an ugly duckling? Because we don't want to just talk about the good points. So the bad points is yes, you can buy this property that needs a little bit of work. However, what happens if you buy it and you actually uncover there's a lot more work that needs to be done? So you've budgeted 15, 20K. Next minute, it's actually, there's a whole bunch of water damage in the bathroom, and in WA, you can't necessarily pull out for that reason. So you've uncovered that. Speak to your conveyancer, all that sort of stuff. So you've discovered that, and next thing you have to redo the whole bathroom, which then potentially could be 10, 15, up to 20K, depending on the size of the bathroom. So next minute, your renovation budget is now 30 to 35. So that is a risk. There is a risk in buying these properties that need a bit of love. You can circumnavigate that, of course, by doing all your checks and being thorough in your inspection prior to making offers. The other is doing these renos. It might be offline for a couple of weeks, depending on how quickly you get trades out there. So you're going to be losing a bit of money for a month or whatever it is, maybe. I mean, I don't know how long.
Yeah, I think a big point of it is the connections you have as well with the right people. So you need to be building your A team. There was a great post that I saw on actually Pizza and Property. It said, like, build your A team before you start investing in property. And I think that's 100% correct. You've got to, like, get the right people and have the right contacts so that they can help you with these things. Because the biggest thing, I don't want to scare anyone away from an ugly duckling. I think by far the quickest way to accelerate your property investing journey is through Ugly Duckling and Renovators Delight properties, where you can add some value to them instantly, because that is what's going to get your equity as fast as possible. I think that's really good for a strategy. Like, when you think about property strategy and portfolio strategy, there's kind of three phases. There's the accumulation phase, the acceleration phase, and then the legacy phase. So the accumulation phase is when you're starting to buy investment properties to build out your portfolio. And they should be filled with these types of properties. So in terms of the first one, I think the first one should be Ugly Duckling, Renovators Delight. Now, this is just generalization. This is me just thinking about me. If I was to start my portfolio all over again, what would I be doing? I would be saying, Joe, you need to get your equity out as quickly as possible. So how do you do that? You're going to do that through renovation. You're going to have someone help you do that. You're going to speak with all of the property managers in the area, and you're going to say, hey, Mr. Property Manager, I'm going to give you the listing, but I want to know that you're going to help me with this renovation. I'm going to do a renovation. I'm going to buy an ugly ass property. I'm going to call you and I'm going to have a conversation with you. What are your thoughts on this? How am I going to add value? How much do I need to spend? Can you get the trades? How do we do this together? And they're going to either say, hell no, I don't do that. Perfect. You're not the type of person for me. Or, you know what, Joe, you sound like you're a go-getter. You go do that. And they'll go help you out. So I think that's kind of what I would be doing. I'd be building my portfolio out of those value add properties. And then that's the accumulation phase. That's when you're accumulating an asset base. But what you can also do, this is where we talk about what do we talk about? Frozen equity. So you can buy these properties that have these things built in. Pick the right property to renovate to, nothing too extreme, while you build the team in confidence.
That's from Belinda Smith.
Oh, Belinda. We got a heavy hitter on here. Belinda Smith. How are you? We need to get Belinda back on, talking more.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but I didn't want to. Yeah,
didn't want to say it. Bring her on.
Belinda said hi. I think she did. Yeah. So somebody asked as well. You go, Joe? Sorry, I'm distracted by the comments.
Okay. So this is essentially what is frozen equity. It is buying a property, storing your value of equity in the future. So you build an asset, you build your base of properties, and you build your accumulation phase with properties that have equity built in. Does that make sense? It's frozen. Yeah. You don't defrost it just yet. And then when you need to, you start defrosting it. You do your renovation, you do your value add, you do your granny flats, you do your developments, and you start to defrost them as the portfolio requires, because we only have a limited resource of cash and equity on one side. I don't think this is big enough, is it? You have cash and equity on one side and serviceability and borrowing ability on the other, right?
That looks like the girl from The Good Place show. Have you seen The Good Place? You know, the lady who... Oh, okay. No, you haven't seen it. I don't know. It's a good show. But getting back to your value add, your granny flat, can I pick a bit of a bone with that granny flat? Because granny flats don't necessarily add capital value to the property. They can. What are your thoughts on that?
They do not add capital. They definitely do not add.
But they add rental return, though. Definitely can add rental return.
Exactly. And that's where that debate around what you actually need is is the serviceability and the cash and equity. Because what happens is you build your portfolio out and then you hit a borrowing capacity wall. You're going to hit a wall where the banks say, you know what, let's just simmer down. You've got your LVRs at 80, 90%, and you've got $2 million worth, $3 million worth of debt, and you're only earning it, X amount of income. Let's just cool our jets. At that time, you're still bringing in capital. You're still bringing in savings. You're still saving money. So that is the perfect opportune time to turn around on your portfolio and start increasing the rents. How do you increase the rent? By increasing the value, by doing some of these renovations, by adding a wall, adding a bathroom. Hey, you know what the bank said to you? I will lend you more money if you get $200 worth of rent. Well, I have $100,000 here, $200,000. I'm going to build a granny flat, and that's going to give me $300 a week worth of rent, which is going to allow me to do that. So you've got to attack your limited resource.
The beauty with some of the is that CBA, I was reading, I think they've been doing this for the last couple of months. They're now factoring in, they'll do a 7% gross yield rather than 6%, because they were capping. The reason they do that is because they say, well, what happens if, because there's all these people that were just buying regional kind of properties or whatever. Well, not always people. If somebody buys a property in a location that may go vacant, they say, well, okay, there's a risk to us as a lender or as an institution. Right. If somebody buys an 8 or 9% yield and then it's vacant for 6 months, the yield on that is 0% at that time. So they want to protect, 0% is no rent coming in. But yeah, so that's
lost me. You lost me.
Well, I mean, 0%. I mean, $0 on the purchase price is zero. So, but yeah, obviously once it's rented again, but it's that vacancy risk that they wanted to protect from, because they say, well, what if one of these larger high yielding properties goes vacant? What if the granny flat's vacant for a month or so? I mean, maybe it's not. Then you need to get a better property manager, I suppose.
Yeah, well, yeah, but also the market turns, right? The thing that I was going to mention is people that go out there buying granny flats. I know there's people out there that say, buy granny flats. But now, I agree. Buy a granny flat. It helps with the cash flow, but do it in the right time of your portfolio of when you need it. It might not actually be the best thing to do straight away up front. Totally depends on everyone's situation, all of that stuff. But if you spend $500,000 on the house and you spend $200,000 on the property, on the granny flat, that's $700,000. Just because you spent $200,000 on that, the valuer is going to walk into that property and he's going to be like, okay, so we've got a house here that's worth $500,000. I see out the back you've got some shed shack thing that'll add $50,000 worth of value. I see $550,000 worth of value here, and they will value your property at a lower rate. So don't use granny flat as a way to get growth equity, because it's not going to happen. The banks do not see it that way. So use it as a cash play, because you can spend $200,000 and get $300 a week rent, which I think I've done the numbers before. It's like a 10% yield. Hell yes, that's going to help you because you're going to have that income.
Yeah, and I think as well, I've heard discussions about whether there's to buy an extra property or do a granny flat, because it can be tough to borrow to build the granny flat. But I suppose as you sort of say, as I think you're alluding to, if you've got the amount of cash, if you've got 150K lying around, but you can't borrow for whatever reason because you haven't structured or whatever, then building that granny flat may be the opportunity to then be able to go and buy another property, so you can have the cash flow increase, which then potentially improves your serviceability.
Yeah, so that's an extra $15,600 a year of income that you don't necessarily have.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's just kind of interesting. It's just around the way that you and I suppose then it comes down to, you need to obviously speak to your brokers and all that sort of stuff to understand before you do any of this, because building a granny flat for the sake of it, wouldn't it be better to subdivision versus granny flat?
Well, yeah, great question. Wouldn't it be better to do a subdivision versus a granny flat? In most cases, I would say yes, it would.
Well, it depends on what are you doing. What are you doing with the subdivision, though? Is this Brendan who's asking the question? I think it's Brendan.
I don't know who's asking that, but
Luke Doran.
My answer is that getting a subdivision through council is very difficult compared to getting a granny flat through council. So you're not going to be able to get a subdivision. That's why people go for granny flats. In my and also granny flats are cheaper as well. They're only $200,000 where a house is like $300,000.
Yeah. That's, I mean, 300K for a very kind of fairly basic sort of, I mean, we're talking like pretty major capital city. Like in the regions might be a touch. You might be able to get a nice one for 300. But yeah, that's the other thing. Like you probably can't, you're probably not going to drop 300K on. So if your issue is borrowing capacity, then you're not going to be able to borrow to build that extra dwelling anyway. I mean, you could sell the land. That's the other option. That's what I was going to say. It depends on what you're going to do as a result of the subdivision.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Okay. Time to talk about Renovators Delights. Now, what is a Renovators Delight? A Renovators Delight is an ugly duckling that's been sat in the sun a little while. It's one of those ones that's just kind of been sitting there and just kind of getting gross. So that is what this is. I also think about Renovators Delights more of an aggressive value add potential. So this is a presentation I've done before. So I will try and do it a bit of justice, but I know it hasn't been too long since we've spoken about this. So this is what happens when you do a renovation, right? Bought this property for $280,000. I did a renovation for $22,000. So I got it revalued at $360,000. So that is $78,000 worth of equity growth. So I spent $1 and I got $3.54 back. So $1 in, $3.54 back in equity. So when I go to the bank, they'll give me 80% of that. So what is 80 times by 78,000? They've given me 80%. Sorry. So they give me back $62,000 to be able to go out there, and that's my deposit. So I bought this property for $280,000. I put down a 88% deposit. I spent $22,000 in the renovation. So I pretty much got my money back on this deal. So that is the beauty of doing these type of things. You can get your money back. So you spend $1 and someone gives you $3.54 in equity. It's not the same as cash, but it's pretty damn good. But it's all because I added value. So what you do is you go to domain.com.au, you go to suburb profiles here. And why did this deal work out so well? As people, if anyone was at the Geelong session that we did, you will see the median house for this area now, this is the area that I purchased this property in. It was in Nor Lane in Geelong. A 2-bedroom house is $416,000. It has a 53 days on market. A 3-bedroom is $490,000. So that is a 2-bedroom. So turning a 2-bedroom into a 3-bedroom is $74,000 different. How would you turn this floor plan? This is the exact floor plan of my house that I own. How would you turn this into a 3-bedroom house? Throw it in the comments and we can discuss. But the reason why I want to do this is not to appease a buyer. I'm not trying to get anyone excited about buying this property. It is to appease the valuer. And that's one thing that you really have to think about with this deal. Let's go through okay, well, maybe someone answer it. First.
Well, the other I suppose on this show, it's probably just important to a lounge. There you go. Somebody said the lounge. That's how you did it, wasn't it, Jeff?
That's the answer. You just threw a wall up there. Threw a wall up between there. All of a sudden, I now have a 3-bedroom house, which is now valued at $490,000. Thank you, Tim.
Change the lounge to an extra bedroom. But the property, how does that actually, like, where are people popping their TV? Are they popping their TV in the dining room, Joe? Or is it?
Well, this is the bedroom here. The dining room is not a dining room anymore. It is a lounge room.
So you just have the dining. The kitchen seems reasonable size. You just pop a table in there, away you go.
Exactly. It's a small dining room. So again, I want to make sure I'm getting tenants, but it's kind of like you can keep this as a dining room if you want, but I just want to appeal the valuer. We've got some people that are in Geelong. They know. So I'm going to bring up some other deals and ask the same question. So we were just in. So what about this property here? This property is. Where would you put this one? Hang on, you can't see it, can you? Yeah, there you go.
This is bigger.
Where would you be putting this extra property? Now this is already. already has, yeah, exactly. You can think of a couple for that one probably. This one already has 2 living rooms. It's got a family and a meals, and it's actually a 3-bed to a 4-bed. So where would you be putting this one? Yeah. Anyway, you put it anyway.
2 new
2
bedrooms.
new bedrooms.
You said 2. Gee, you're
Make
going
a
to turn it into a 5
5-bedroom.
better.
Here we go. Here we go.
Well,
Now we're trying to party.
probably, yeah, I'm trying to remember that because living room. Yeah. But where would you cut off the living room, Joe? That's the kind of.
So for me, there's ample space here to be able to do that. You would either convert that into a room. The best way to do it based on this layout would be to just, the way I think it would to do it would just put a wall here. Yep. That would then give you a little study nook here. It would give you a living room here, and it will give you a family meals here. So this area we were looking at, where were we looking? We're looking at houses for sale in Old Ranella. Right. I was just going through, clicking through what those properties were. And you can see, and this is all you have to do. You just click through. What about this one? 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, got a family and a meal, got a kitchen there. There is a lounge room that can be turned into a 4-bedroom. It's as easy as that. Go to the valuer and say, hey, Mr. Valuer, I now have a 4-bedroom house. Oh, okay, cool. Well, this is now valued at a 4-bedroom house. I don't know.
It's only 450 square meters, though, Joe, that particular property.
That's land. It's not the house.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but that's a smaller. It's like I suppose
I just clicked on the most recent ones.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And you do it anywhere. Go to another place that has a large amount of volume. Go for a house. We don't need a minimum price. Minimum price 2-bed. Maximum price maximum 3-bed because we don't want to we don't want to be turning it to a 4-bed to a 3-bed. The reason why, we go to domain, we can see the domain, the suburb profile. Let's go to Morford Vale. This suburb here, there is a difference of $100,000 for moving a 2-bed to a 3-bed. And then when you move a 3-bed to a 4-bed, it's $50,000. But when you move it from a 4-bed to a 5-bed, you can't see, sorry, I'll zoom in. It's $40,000. So when you go from 4 to 5, it's a little bit less. When you go to 2 to 3, it's a lot. And when you go to 3 to 4, it's a little bit less. So you want to look for those 2 to 3 bed properties. But you just do this. Look, 1, 2, 3, 2 living and a dining. You probably can't do anything with that one. Great. Moving on. What about this one? Again, basic. Can't do anything with that one. 1, 2, 3. Nope. Can't do anything with that one. Whew, this is looking good. 3-bed, 2-bath already. That is valued at $550, $598. That looks like you can do something with it. It's got 2 bathrooms already. That's a lounge room. You could turn something in there into a bedroom.
A large range, that isn't it? Though $50K range. Gee, you'd want to be saying to the agent, "Oh, look, are we looking at the low end of the range? Or are we looking at the top end? Where do we need to be?"
And it will still go $80,000 over.
Gee, I hope not.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's that.
There was a question here. When you do and Brian said, don't forget building approval for adding, removing any walls. I mean, what do you need a building? Because if it's an internal wall, what is the situation with adding and building approval?
I've never gotten one for moving walls around. No, if it's under the roof line, you can do what you want. Obviously, you're not. Yeah.
You don't take out structural load-bearing walls, of course. No.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. If you're moving that kind of stuff, you need a structural engineer to go in there and say there needs to be a structural lintel here to be able to do that. And there are opportunities to do that during your no building or approval. Yes, if it's structural, very good point. Yeah, if it is structural, you do need to make sure that if you are tearing down a wall. But what I'm talking about here is just putting up a wall wherever, here, putting up a wall here. I'm not removing anything. I am adding something here. So all of a sudden you have the entry hall. I'd probably remove these 3 walls. None of those look load bearing, but I'd be putting a wall here and then having a thing here. You then got your family and meals and your kitchen. You can make that as a nice little thing here, and then you can have a little study nook here or a little lounge room. I don't know. This is just looking at this for the first time. But yeah, I'm talking about adding rather than removing.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one, and I think we've talked about this a couple of times, but it's always good to go over again. So when you do from 3-bed to 4-bed, doesn't value or also consider having a smaller room kitchen, hence you may not get to the median 4-bedder price. I mean, what have you kind of factored in? I don't think the valuer thinks that deeply. I mean, they wouldn't.
He does. Yeah, he definitely does. And that's kind of like this deal that I was talking about that was my one. I did take away, how do I add it? Yeah, I did take away a dining room, right? I turned the lounge room into a room, which now made this the lounge room. But what I did was I put a breakfast bar in the kitchen to make it a bit more. So if you're going to take something, give something away as well. That's my thoughts. If you're going to take something, give something back. But yeah, the valuer will look at it. But the difference, let's go back to that Morphett Val example. The difference is $100,000. So the valuer is going to say, oh, let's have a look. Let's open this up here. You can do this with Domain.
Probably might not be worth 513, but I'm gonna say it's 490 or whatever it is.
I'm gonna drop the value down. It's not the high. It's a 4-bedder. I can't get away from that. It's a 4-bedder, but it doesn't have 2 living rooms. So I'm gonna say it's the lower end of this upper end scale. And then this is where you need to be very specific. You can't just rely on these numbers to be able to pull this stuff out.
You really need to compare as best you can apples of apples. Because just saying, just because you're converting, like if you create a 3 or 4 bed and you have like a tiny lounge room, then obviously the values and even a renter. So the other person you probably want to speak to there is your property manager to understand, well, how much is this going to make this property unrentable for the demographic in the area?
What I'm thinking about doing is showing people a pest and building report that I've done recently, to show, I guess, what is a renovation and what is the value that you can get. Do people want to see that? While we come up with that answer, maybe we'll just run to our next.
We haven't even got to development yet. Jeez, Joe.
We haven't even hit development. We're going to talk about renovation, but if people want to see that, throw that in the comments, and we will attempt to make it happen.
There's nothing worse than going into a situation unprepared, especially when that situation is purchasing one of the most expensive assets of your life against a trained property expert in the form of a real estate agent. It's a scary thought, but it is a skill that can be taught. Do you want to learn how to become fully prepared when buying a property so you can get out there, buy your dream home or investment property without the fear of actually messing it up? Scott Agate, the founder and expert property negotiator at Hello House, has been helping people buy their properties by stepping in and negotiating with the agents and saving his clients tens of thousands, and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars. Scott has now decided to share all that he's learned over the past 28 years in real estate so you can go out there and do the exact same thing on how to find a property, analyze that property, negotiate on that property, and transact on it to get the best results. He's created the Get Buyer Ready course, which is a step-by-step guide on how you too can become an expert property negotiator. It's the easy way of how you can avoid all of these agent games and get the best purchase price on that dream home or your investment property. The course is in short bites for busy people with no fluff at all. Just all the information you need to get buyer ready and secure that next property with confidence at the best price. Scott has been kind enough to give our community a massive discount with the link below. Sign up today before you even think about putting an offer on that next property, and it will be one of the best decisions you ever make.
Too right. One of the best decisions you ever make. We've lost Jeff. I don't know where Jeff has gone, so it's just you and me, guys. It is just you and me, which makes me a little bit nervous. Because now it's just me talking to myself. So let's see how this goes. Where did we get to? We want to see a pest and building report, don't we? Okay, cool. So one of the things is when you buy a Ugly Duckling or a Renovators Delight, you're taking on a bit of a risk. You're taking on a risk for of the problem, right? You're buying a problem and you're creating a solution with your property investment thing, right? You're spending $50,000 to get $100,000 back. So this is a property I recently purchased. It is a report that was done last week. Hang on, I need to hide certain
I am
things.
back.
Hold on, I haven't figured out how to hide certain things that I need to. Can't disclose it. I can't disclose everything.
No, you definitely should not be. I was a bit concerned.
Yeah, I
so
changed the word.
While Joe's figuring out about hiding things, is a 4x1 less desirable for tenants, and would it impact future sales? Well, the answer is yes, it would. It's less desirable. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I've got a family of 2 kids or even 3 kids, and I'm buying a 4x1, just think of the bathrooms. Like that's, I mean, if particularly boys or girls, like, I mean, yeah, like, so definitely yes. It does impact prices, but how much that does, you just have to kind of look in and make a decision on whether you're comfortable.
Yeah, and for that example that I was talking about before, I would be trying to make that one, that Devonshire one, a 4-bed 2-bath, because looking at that area, a 3-bed 1-bath, 3-bed 1-bath is about what was it, 505? No, sorry, 600 and odd.
Yeah, low sixes, yeah.
And then a 4-bed 2-bath is about 700 and odd. So if you can build a bathroom and a wall costs $3,000. A new bathroom probably costs $20,000 to $25,000. Yeah, you just got to weigh it up. So you can spend $30,000, and then it's worth $700,000, which is $1 into 3. But yes, you're 100% right. The 4x1. However, when you think about the resale, you're not selling the property. You need your equity back. So you add the wall to get your equity back so you can have your deposit back to then go into the next one. Selling the property is going to happen all the way over here. So when you sell it, you obviously want to make it desirable so you can sell it. You don't want to ruin the place, but you want your equity back. But I'll do this report. I've changed the name to Tester PDF. A whole heap of I think it's just the pictures really tell 1,000 words. So should I explain what this property is actually? So this property is in an area, the medium house price is around 600 to 620,000 for a 4-bed 2-bath. This property is a 4-bed 2-bath. I purchased it for 527,000. Based on the work that is required on this property, we need to spend about $20,000 to $30,000 on it to get it to a rentable position. Now, the goal for this property itself is actually to knock it down. So it is to renovate it minimally, because there is a lot of issues with it. Asbestos fences, the back fence is asbestos. This is my favorite part. The retaining wall that does the matrix. So there are definitely some issues with this property.
This is an ugly duck. This is a Renovators Delight, Joe, by the looks of it.
This is a Renovation Delight / subdivision development. So, you don't need to do ridge capping because the mold and moss has done it for you, which is good. But yes, you've got some holes here, which is going to cause some major moisture in the house, which is what you'll see. Clean your gutters, people. Look at this. They have gardens growing out of their gutters. There's a gutter joint leaking. It's not very good.
And if you can get those round gutters rather than those bloody square gutters,
really?
Flow better.
I've never thought about the shape of a gutter before, but I might. Exterior. So we're still on the exterior. We're still looking pretty gross. Garage. Wait until we get on the inside. So living and dining, a lot of stuff everywhere. That's fine. We've got this here is a crack repair. So there's been a crack previously. Another crack repair, and they put a high-powered torch on it, and it shows up all the cracks, which is really good. Another crack here, been repaired. Another crack that's been repaired. Another crack that, oh dear, this one's not looking too good. Oh, Jesus. This is, oh my God. It just keeps getting worse. So this place has a lot of large cracking here. Unlikely you can spend 20 grand to 30 grand on that to make it a decent standard to rent. Well, let's have a chat in 2 months and we will see. I'll send you the link of what this place looks like. So all of that is required is patching and painting. You can put an expansion joint in there. Wouldn't really cost too much money to be able to do this. So it looks like a lot, but there's actually not a lot. This here is definitely not your first time investor. This scares the crap out of anyone. A lot of people would walk away from this one. This one here down the bottom, one thing to be aware of, every old property is going to have high moisture reading behind the walls. I'm pretty sure the next photo is going to be this guy. Oh no, bedroom, crack. Massive crack. I don't even know how that happened. Anyway,
wow.
There's a high moisture reading behind the lower walls. The reason why I'm showing people this is it doesn't really matter about what it looks like. You can fix those. You can fix these things. Like every problem has a solution. It just has a cost attached to it. So the reason why I like this property is not necessarily because of the amount of renovation work. If this property was purely a renovation play, I would be a lot less interested in it at 500 and whatever we paid for it, 520, 520, 530, whatever it was that we paid for it. I'd be a lot less interested. However, you can sell land in this area for $300,000 per lot. This property is on a 900 square meter lot, which gives us 3 times $300,000 lot. So I've purchased this property for $527,000. We're going to spend $20,000. So let's say, sorry, 530. So we spend $550 on it, and I'm going to sell in 5 years or 10 years, we're going to sell 3 lots for 300, 300, 300. We're going to sell it for $900,000. Does that stack up or does that stack up?
Yeah, I mean, it does.
Okay, good. So I don't know. I guess that scares off a lot of people. That it can definitely scare you off. But I guess the point of showing you all of that is every problem has a solution. It just has a cost attached to it. That's my thing.
Yeah, so I suppose bringing it back to the Renovators Delight. So Renovators Delight, you've just seen an example of what that.
Hardcore.
I mean, that's probably at the spectrum of almost knocking it down. But I mean, like it still probably has some life left in it.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of life left. Absolutely. Like they just did a brand new bathroom renovation. Another thing to check is there a high moisture reading behind the back of the wall if they've done a new bathroom? If the answer is no, it means they've done the bathroom well. If the answer is yes, they mean they've done it poorly. Hey, Joe, will you or the client sell them as vacant lots or with planning permission? That is a really good question. Thanks, Haley. Great question, Haley. Will we sell them as vacant lots? We will most likely sell them as vacant lots. Yeah, we wouldn't get the planning permission. Like it costs $20,000 to $22,000 to get the planning permission done. No, it doesn't even cost that. It costs like minimal, very little. So it doesn't really add value to anyone. No, it's
a couple of thousand, Joe.
Yeah, it's a couple of thousand. But once you go through the approval,
and you got to pay there's like a council levy depending on which. I mean, I've done that down in. Thanks for sharing the inspection report. Great first-hand practical stuff. Yeah, and the I suppose the other getting back to the Renovators Delight is it is something that there is a significant amount of work. So the pros of it is yes, there is potential upside in equity, and if you do for this one, you might not necessarily increase the rent that much if you fix that. But in some cases,
well, I mean the problem that you have right now, you cannot put a tenant in there. You can't do it. You cannot get a tenant in that place. So right now, as soon as you settle, you're losing money until you do the renovation and get it up to speed. So you do have a long period of vacancy while you organize a plasterer to come in. He needs to fix all of those cracks. Yeah. But in 5 years' time, those cracks are going to be there again because that house had a new extension on. That new extension is pulling the house from one side, and bricks don't move. So you'll see these double brick houses and they'll have these cracks. Don't get too scared about cracks in mortar and bricks. They don't bend, they break. To
stop it from cracking, I think you need to fix the piece. Was it the underpinning or
the underpinning? Yeah.
And that can cost sort of $30,000. So you sort of say you're going to spend. I mean, it can cost even more than that. This is an interesting question. how do you know you will get approval on the subdivision split to 3 lots? Well, that's that's the beauty. You want to answer that, Joe, or do you want me to? Oh, you can answer it.
Mate, you answer it. You answer it, mate. You love it.
Well, I mean, yeah, you know a lot about this area as well. But basically, South Australia. We did a session with Ross as well. So I suppose there's a couple of ways you can answer it. You can either understand yourself. Joe, the king of 0% yield.
Yeah,
I think that was Brendan who said that.
That's very good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When you have a property,
oh no, that's Tao.
It's a negative yield.
Yeah. But no, so the way you know is if you understand the town planning or the local land environmental planning, as we call it here in New South Wales. But basically, what are the subdivision kind of requirements of the area?
Yeah.
And what are the rules? Yeah, if you understand the rules, then you can understand what you can do and what you can't do. And where there's a bit of grey area in those rules as well, because I'm not saying there's grey area in this particular one, but in some of them you can sort of, if it's unclear, you can sort of apply for that to be, there's a bit more risk in doing it if there is grey area. But yeah, you just have to understand and Adelaide's made it pretty easy, very easy. Like it's across it's citywide. Like Ross spoke about, I mean, yes, there are exceptions and so you have to do your checks on each particular property to understand to make sure. But just understand and look up. They've got a great tool. What's that? Sapper, is it? Or
yeah, Sapper's really good to figure that out. But the way it is just understand what the local government planning rules are, and then just apply to those. So as I was talking about, that one is 900 square meters. The minimum lot size is 300 square meters. So I mean, 3 divided by 900. 900, no, it's just general neighborhood. 900 divided by 3 is 369. So you get 3 lots at 300 square meters, and they need a minimum frontage of 9 square meters. The frontage on this property is 28 square meters. So you can have a 9, and then 9, whatever point. So it'll be 9.3, 9.3. So you just go 28 square meters divided by 3, then allows you to do the lots. There's a little bit of nuance in it, and there's different locations and all of that kind of stuff. But actually, this is the best part to totally talk about. Guys, you have to build this person has come up here and said, must talk to a town planner. Now, I'm a buyer's agent, right? I buy investment properties, and we don't like to talk about that on this group. It's not about who I am, but just to illustrate the point, there are people out there that are development agents. There are people out there that do developments. I find, negotiate, and secure investment grade locations, and I understand development, renovation, and subdivision, but there are people out there that I leverage and use to help me do my developments. So just don't get too wrapped up and too scared about this. Get an understanding and speak to everyone. Just go onto Google, I was going to say the yellow pages, but that doesn't really exist anymore. But go onto Google, type in the word subdivision, and then talk to subdivision consultant, development consultant, DA consultant, and just call all of those people up and say, hey, I'd love to have a chat. I'm trying to do a development here. I want to understand subdivision. What are the minimum lot size? What are the minimum setbacks? What are the minimum requirements for me to do a subdivision here? Can I do a battle axe dwelling? What can I do on this property? And those people will be like, hell yeah, I'll give you, you pay me $15,000 and I will do the development for you. Is that overpaying? Maybe, but you don't know how to do the thing. So it's not overpaying. But I guess, is that a lot of money to pay? Yes. But if the deal still works with their money factored in, it doesn't really matter, does it? Yeah, there you go. Another person has said there, we love developing, just get a great team.
You have to have that team. I mean, particularly if you do it day in, day, actually even the people who do it day in, day out, it does take that team, because there'll be that sort of thing that'll pop up. So you kind of go on. Okay.
So well, I guess that was my next point, was the subdivision side of things, but we kind of dived deep into that.
We did. Give us a quick run through. Oh, you kind of talked to it anyway.
The reason why we like subdivision is it gives us options. So our options here are buy, renovate, and extract equity. When you do a development, you get the opportunity of doing so much more. You get to buy, subdivide property, sell the land, keep the land, keep the house. Like in this option here, this property here can be subdivided and split off, and then you keep this back lot. So with this back lot, what are you going to do with it? Am I going to sell the land? Am I going to keep the land? Am I going to sell both? Am I going to keep both? Am I going to keep the front house? Am I going to build on the back? Am I going to sell the new house? Am I going to sell the old house? Am I going to keep both, rent them out? Am I going to sell both and capitalize on the value? What the hell am I going to do? Gives you a whole heap of optionality. So again, this is not your first purchase. But what you can do is buy a property that has renovation potential that you add value to, that you can extract. Exactly like that person that I just showed you before, that ugly duckling. That person put in $100,000 into this other deal, not this deal that I'm talking about. This one, the pest and building report, hasn't even gone unconditional yet, so I should probably be quiet. But they need their equity out. That area is worth $600,000. They've paid $530,000. They'll spend $20,000 on it. That'll get them to $550,000. The area is worth $600,000 to $620,000. So they've then got $50,000 to $70,000 worth of equity that they can draw on to then go on to their other deal. They're then going to buy another property, do a similar thing, renovate, subdivide, blah, 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 but renovate. And then in 5 years' time, she's going to be like, you know what? I can't borrow any more money. The banks have said I can't do it. So then they're going to come back to and turn around on their portfolio and start attacking it to get cash and equity. Cash to cash flow, which will be their kind of
granny flat. Sell one of the lots or sell two lots, depending on what you want. You got options.
Yeah, you got options to then knock down the house and then sell lots 3, 6, 9. So I guess I did actually draw up some numbers for the subdivision. Did we want to go through what they look like?
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, alternatively, I've also. I mean, I've got the deal I chatted.
What are your thoughts, mate? What are your thoughts?
No. Let's look at it. Let's look at it.
Okay.
Let's look at it.
Fine.
Let's see.
Okay. So this is
485.
So this is a property that is a build and retain. So this is a property that was purchased to, actually it's this one here. It's this house here. So we need to buy the house and retain it. So
is this one also in Adelaide, Joe?
This potentially is in Adelaide. So we purchased it for $580,000. Okay, I'm gonna jump between a couple of slides here. $485,000. We needed a renovation, so we renovated this house for. It says it over here somewhere. Oh, renovation is included with the demolition. I think it was like 20-30 grand. So we needed to renovate it, and then that allowed the front house to be worth $520,000, and that rear lot is worth $250,000, right? Because we're subdividing and splitting off. So what does that look like? Renovation plus the subdivision is $94,000. So $485,000 plus $94,000. Our front house is now worth $520,000, and our land is now worth $260,000. So that means we've got total value of $770,000. Is that making sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw the risk mitigation sort of person in there. As long as you've done all your checks, like just be very careful doing these kind of things, that you understand that there is potential risk of these kind of things. Like things can all just factor in that.
Absolutely, the renovation can blow out. You can do this, try and do the subdivision, it doesn't work. What if the council says, you know what? No, you can't have.
Well, it's unlikely in this situation because Adelaide's, or if it is in Adelaide,
in this situation, it's a little unlikely. But again,
the other thing I suppose, just factor in that it all sounds good on paper. You just need to, because you need to be the type of investor that can accept that the things that, because usually, like having done and seen a few development deals in my time, 1 or 2 things or 3 or 4 things are going to go wrong, and when that does go wrong. Like Joe and a lot of the people he deals with are people that accept that there is that kind of thing that can happen. And if you can't sort of stomach that sort of risk, then maybe this is not a deal for you. There's money to be made in some deals, but the other thing I'll say is not all development deals are definitely not worth buying as well. Because I'd say that.
Well, I think the money's in
Probably.
the buying. So like that's a prime example that you were talking about, Jeff. So I said 300, 300, 300. But what happens if you only get 250, right? I've gone from 900,000 to
750.
750,000.
He's still making money. Yeah.
Barely, because it's going to cost $100,000 to knock the place down.
Plus, yeah, you're right. Actually, yeah,
not
good
100,000
point.
to knock it down, but like in the subdivision the subdivision process is all laid out.
Do a couple of different fees though. Back to this one.
No, but that's what I mean. Like you are spending, like you're all of a sudden, worst case scenario is not looking pretty great. If you're only getting it, so you really need to be sure of what that end land sale value is, or that end product property sale is worth. But anyway, $480,000. We had a $10,000 for services. So services is like putting water in, putting a water meter in, closing, renovation, subdivision, demoing the shed. As you can see with this area, there is a lot of shed and metal stuff. So there's a little bit more in the demo side of things needed. Legals, stamp duty, division is $22,000. Subdivision buyer's agent, I've got him factored in, $10,000. So the total cash required is $142,000. That is then 770 of value. We then have selling costs for selling the land, but I think those numbers are a bit messed up. So I'm going to just run off these ones that I've built here. So essentially, we've bought the property. It's worth $450 a week times by 52. So it's a 4.8% yield. If we sell off the land, the total LVR on this property, if we just factor in what is the standard loan to value ratio on this property, is 74%. Because we did the renovation and we've taken it from, we spent the $20,000, $30,000 on the renovation. It's then grown the value of this property to an LVR of 74%. Does that make sense? Like you've got $38,000 worth of debt and the front house.
You've increased the value and the loan amount stayed the same.
So it is front house new value is what it should be. Front house new value is now $520,000. So we made a little bit of money on our renovation, right? If you sell this $260,000 land, that then takes your LVR on the front house to 47%. So you've taken that $260,000 and put it into the front house. Now it's cost you about $100,000. It's cost you $142,000 to do that, but it has then given you the ability to go to 250%, which is a 47% LVR. So the cash flow on this property initially at $450 times by 52 is negative $3,580. Once you put that subdivision into that front house, it is now positive $25,413. This is the value of doing these things, because all of a sudden the broker is now, you're now going to go back to the broker and say, Mr. Broker, what are you talking about? I don't have negative 3,500. I've got positive 25. Yeah, actually, good point. Less GST.
CGT, capital gains tax.
Oh,
well,
yes.
Very
good point. Very good point. I put these together very fast and very, very, maybe a little bit too exaggerated on the profit side of things.
That's why you got me to chime in and say, but what about this and what about that? What about that? Because you got to.
Yeah. You do have to less capital gains tax and less stamp duty, GST as well,
and selling costs and all this stuff. Yeah.
Well, selling costs was factored in. Selling costs was factored in up here. Yes, but yes. However, the point is not the numbers. Don't get too caught up into these crazy numbers. But the fact, like, just look at the difference of return that you can get by doing something like this. But the thing is, ultimately, you don't need to know how to do these things right now. There are people out there and their job is to do this day in and day out. And that's all they do. And they run through it. They run the numbers. So get involved with those type of people. Get involved with people that are looking at these type of deals, looking for these, that do these deals, and then go deep onto the analysis side of things of like, how does this stack up? Does this actually stack up? Yes, it does. Let's go for it. But taking it from negative 3,500 to positive 25, it's a pretty good return. And you don't need to do it now. If you did it now, you get a 50% I can't talk about tax, but there is a thing called 50% capital gains tax discount if you hold an asset over a year. So maybe it's not best to do the subdivision right away. It allows you to get a discount on your capital gains tax as well.
I just say I'd also be careful on that CGT thing, because if you do it once, you might be okay, but if you do it 2 or 3 times, they're going to say, well, you're actually you're actually in the business of developing and selling, so you won't get this. You generally won't get the CGT discount. You'll just but then you can sort of just chat to your accountant. We had Jeremy on last week, so. Does it?
So what are the downsides? The downsides of doing all of this stuff is
there you go. That's the point. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think the vacant land you'll get the discount.
And there's also potentially GST implications as well, Joe.
And also, I've bought this. Well, this isn't my deal, but like you'll buy most likely if you're doing a deal with if you're doing a joint venture, you'll do it through a trust. Trusts don't get a capital gains tax discount, so like there's a whole thing with structuring. That's why you speak to an accountant.
That's not somebody trying to throw shade on Joe. That's Jenny. So Jenny's simply trying to learn and sort of understand.
It's the world. It's the world we live in. Like it's this property game, and this is why this is not your first property deal. But if you can find out if you can subdivide it into the future, it's good to be like, cool. This is not a Today Joe problem. I don't like Today Joe doesn't want to deal with this, but in 5 years' time, Joe wants the opportunity to be able to learn how to do this and make it happen for myself. So it's like, it gets a little bit convoluted and crazy from a tax perspective. So yes, but if you take something and create something, you're creating value. So there will be some money in there. But the tax man,
that's what I love about the community, Joe. People are on here to make sure that, like, Jenny it was an accountant, I think. So the other thing I say is, if you're just be cautious of buying something that you may develop in 3 to 5 years' time, because the council regulations may change. The council planning.
This is a really good like illustration. Best development we've done is picked up $600,000 in a year. The worst one we've done sent my father bankrupt. It's really important to know your stuff. Yeah, that's very well said. It's like that's such a crazy difference. 600,000 or bankrupt. That's mental. Jeff, I think that's so. We've covered off. Set and forget. We've covered off Ugly Duckling. We've covered off renovation. We've talked about subdivision. Let's go deep. Let's go deep on development, because what I was talking about there was just selling the land. Like, do people even buy land? Don't they want to put houses on that land? Like, what's the go with that? How do we do development?
You're already an hour and a half, so I'm gonna smash through the old development side of things.
Go on.
But so in terms of, I mean, this is a deal that is somebody who I know quite well. His name starts with J and ends with an F. So you can put the might have who. Anyway, so I try to crack a joke. I don't know. Read between the lines, people. But I have spoken about this one before, but I'll set the scene on what developing, because Joe spoke about subdivision. So development is really just subdivision is a sub thing of development anyway. So we've kind of already spoken about it, but we're talking about developing to build now. So what that essentially is you're taking a larger. Does it have an E in the middle? It does. So you have a larger sort of plot of land, and you're sort of chopping it up and then not subdividing. So then you're sort of deciding if you're going to build on it, that is developing. So that's describe what it is. So the pros of development are that you can potentially add, as Joe just spoken about, you can add a whole bunch of value. The critical thing is you have to buy it at the right price. If you sort of, because a lot of people see larger sites, and you see it day in, day out, Joe. You see a large block of land, and you're like, okay, great. If I build this, and we sort of talk about it behind the scenes, and we say, if we build this, how much is the end product going to be worth? Because build costs are there. So a lot of development sites aren't actually profitable in the short term. And if you're going to keep them longer term, yes, but you're actually just building. Is it worth the risk? So the pros is, yes, you can add value. You can do all that sort of stuff. So The cons, I would say, though, is that you can really open yourself up, as that person said before. You can go bankrupt. I mean, there are these. If you don't factor in, if you're overzealous with your numbers, and if you sort of if build costs go up, if COVID happened, and you're sort of buying something at the start of sort of 2020, and you think you can build something for X amount, and all of a sudden, in 6 months' time, that sort of goes up by 50% or even worse, doubles. What happens then? Do you just not build, or can you still afford the development? So there is, it's kind of putting on your big person's pants and saying, well, yes, there's a bit more involved in it as well.
Yeah.
So,
well, and also the challenge that you have, right? Like that deal that we were talking about before, that was the build and retain. We're still getting a rent from the front house. Like the other
if you're not
deal,
getting down, you don't have any rent.
you have nothing. You've got nothing but debt expenses on your vacant plot of land that's not getting any rent in. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I talked to this point. Selling vacant land, especially the rear of the blocks, isn't always easy to sell. I would say, yeah, I'd agree with that, because having done it myself, and this is a deal that I will chat to here. I suppose who is it for though? Who is it for? I think it's for people who really want to accelerate their equity, because you can really grow that quite substantially. But it has to be on the right type of property. It's not for somebody who, I wouldn't say the first deal you do shouldn't be to develop.
No.
And some people may disagree with that, but I think it's, you should really get your feet wet first. But I've teased enough, so I'm going to present this one, and I'm going to do another development very soon. But this is the, I'll present this particular one. So this is the property. As you can see, it was an absolute knockdown. We bought this at the back end of 2019, just before COVID hit. So this one we bought for 460, and that one it's pretty much land value. Like literally, I don't know.
Is that the photos? Is that?
Yeah, no photos. So literally, You should have seen it. The place was falling down out the back. There was concerns. There were snakes out the back.
Snake.
It was.
Did you have to clear the land? So you had a house on there. Did you have to spend the 20, 30 grand? Well, probably 20 to 25 grand of demo.
It was all included in the demo cost.
That's what I mean. So did you have to pay for the demo costs?
Yeah, 15K. So because I had the right, like if I was just to come off the street kind of thing, you probably would have been 20 to 25 or 30. But because this is a joint venture, so the person it is with does multiple sort of ones of them, so they got a pretty good price. So we pretty much bought. So Alberton, for those who know Adelaide, is a fairly tightly held sort of pocket, close to in the Port Adelaide area. So So we bought that pretty close to land value. It was definitely a knockdown property. You would not renovate this property. The video was it was an owner occupier. I don't know how the person was living in this property, but anyway. So what we did, so the numbers on this. So I ended up selling the entire project for. I'll share. I'll stop sharing that one.
Yeah, have you got a spreadsheet?
I'll share. I don't actually have a spreadsheet. I do have a spreadsheet somewhere, but I've got details on that one again. So I won't share that one now because I haven't. I should have prepped that.
How much do you pay for it? 440.
460. So this one here sold for 510. So we end up developing. So this other one over here. Let's see. Share this one. So this was the one right at the back. So just up here. This one sold for 479, and letter B sold for 495. Actually, B could be the one at the front. I always get confused between those ones. Anyway, so full transparency. So we sold it for let's say 1.49 million, and I was just going to say 1.5 just to keep it simple. So this cost us 1.3 million to develop. So you sort of say, yes, you've made 190K. I wouldn't.
How'd you make 190K?
How did you make 190? So 1.4. So 1.3 was all costs, including including GST and all that sort of stuff. So right. 1.49 minus 1.3. So 190.
Right.
Joe's doing the numbers.
Yeah, I'm doing the numbers.
190.
So 495. So 1.475, right? That's what you've got.
Oh, was it?
So we bought the front. So we bought the land for 460. How much did it cost you to build all this stuff?
So 600K.
Cost 600K to.
Yeah.
You bought the house for 460. You then add the 600, so you're in for 106, 1.6, and then you sold for 1.47. Right.
So 460 and the build. So that's 1.06. But the other costs that the other cost of the killer is that we instead of going through a major lender, we had to go through a private funder and we paid 11% interest.
11% interest. Jesus.
Yeah. So 1.0. So yeah, 1.06. Yeah. So the costs and the additional costs, including you killed it there, Joe. So yeah, basically, yeah, the interest costs alone were probably about because this project. So we exited this project just before the end of the 2022 financial year. So 2020, 21, 22. So we sold that one on the 28th of June, 2021, which I was cheering about because otherwise we would have had to have completed another tax return for the 2022-2023 financial year.
So what was the net profit in the end? Like what did you, so how long was the period? How long did it take to go from knocking the house down? You bought it, then you knocked the house down, and then you had to build 3 new houses. What did that look like?
So the longest delay was actually getting. So would I do this deal again? I would have kept these properties because if you look at what's selling in Alberton now,
you would have been
like yes, and it's COVID boom. So, but they'd probably be worth, I'd say, at least 600K each, and be renting for probably 550 a week because they're brand new properties.
Right.
So, but it's you
so,
can't.
So how
can't
long did it take?
So it took the key for 5 years to avoid GST. Yeah, I know. I would have loved done those. So the builds took 15 months.
Yeah, that's my favorite moment of Oz property. Yeah, I know that. I'm the one that got stung with it.
Damn it. No,
Don't tell me something I already know and have already paid for.
Yeah. No. But no, it was a great look. We made money out of the deal. So
how much money did you make? So sorry, how long did it take? 2 years. Took 2 years.
Just under 2 years. Yeah.
Right,
the biggest delay was it took us 6 months to sort of finalize the funding, which we only had a loan of just in the 300s on it. So because we put down the 20% deposit. So got that sorted. So we only had a loan and we were paying interest only. So it was costing us about $1,000 a month to hold. So that was all factored in.
Right. That's all factored in. So the outcome was 415,000 net.
No. Don't. So that's purely the build cost plus you're not factoring in the 80 or 90,000 we paid in interest, plus the demolition, plus all the. I
want to know the real numbers, Jeff. I want the real numbers.
Like I say, so the real numbers were the total development costs, which is absolutely everything, including kind of at the end of it, was 1.3 million. I mean, it's probably 1 point. Yeah.
Okay. Now we're not looking as attractive, Jeff. So you made 175.
Yeah, exactly. But when you do a profit on costs, that's a horrendous return.
Yeah, that is horrendous.
You would not do that deal. So,
is this a pro development thing or like
No, this is definitely pro development because this is during COVID. So this is where you would struggle to get, like, we struggled to get finance. It took us longer to build. There were delays in the build. So we were probably, so this is worst case scenario, and we still managed to make 175,000.
Yeah.
So we were factoring we could potentially make sort of, and we were selling these when when it was hard to get loans. Like this was when people were concerned. But this is when I think we sold the first one in early 2021. So you were selling it. Of course, we probably could have held, but we said, hey, look, let's. The joint venture partner had a lot of money invested. How much GST? Yeah, so that 1.3 is inclusive GST. So I think GST. I mean, it's like roughly 7% because you can claim back GST credits. Speak to your accountant on that sort of stuff. Did you sell any off the plan? So we actually sold. We sold one or maybe two off the plan. Yeah, we sold two off the plan and one at the end. So we had one left over once it was built. It was the back one. So yeah, the front one sold pretty quickly, and then the back one sold just as in the process of being built, and the one at the back sold after it had been completed.
Interesting. That's super interesting. So yeah, 175. But if you break that down over 2 years, it's a bit of a difficult. Like, what is the opportunity?
You wouldn't do it for the risk.
Yeah, you wouldn't. And also like the cash flow that you would need to fork out for that, because you need to have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash flow to be able to serve this stuff, because you got to do demo, you got to do subdivision.
The beautiful thing, and not all lenders will do this, but the little trick, not a little trick, but is capitalizing interest into the loan. So we once we got the development finance, so we got the initial loan through who was it through? It was through NAB. So NAB, we got the initial loan for them. So yes, we had to pay interest on that, about $1,000 a month. But once we then you made 10 cents on the dollar, not very feasible. Well, no, definitely not. I mean, but that was our worst case scenario. So
what did we learn today? Throw your questions if you've got any questions for Jeff and I. One of the other things to mention is I'm going through a development right now, and I haven't really spoken too much about it, but you can sell properties to people that sell properties. Like, so I have a block of land that I have a house right now. It's getting demoed, and then we're going to sell the blocks of land. But my FISO says I need $250,000 per block of land. So I've then gone out to developers and I said, hey, does anyone want my block of land? Now, I know if I put it on the market, I'd probably get 260, but just speed wise, it's just great. The builder, the house and land people come back to me and they're like, yeah, I'll take it. I'll buy it for $5. I'll buy it for $250. So we can actually just give it to them and not mess around with going online and giving agent fees. I'm like, great, well, I'll take it, because they're not paying agent fees.
You have to pay. You probably have to pay commission to. Have they just? Is it like a kind of?
No. They don't sell it. They buy it off of us as land, and then it's their responsibility. Okay. It's not a pending waiting for. But when the deal's done, I'll go through a full FISO breakdown, and we can share the goods with everyone. But
so this question popped up for Stuart. So what you can ask for, you probably wouldn't be able to do it with your major lenders unless you look at their commercial sort of lending arm. What you can do, it's called capitalizing the interest into the loan. So essentially that means that the interest goes on top of the loan instead of you paying a repayment, because and it works or you can ask for it probably where you're going to sell it at the end, because then you're reducing your cash flow burden throughout the project. So Joe was saying, holding costs. Well, holding costs were actually, but the only challenge that is you need to be very confident that you're going to pay interest at the end. Exactly. But the challenge is that if you can't sell it for more than what the loan is worth, that's when you can really get yourself into trouble. So you just have to you have to have multiple exit strategies. Like knowing this deal again, we could have sold those 3 blocks of land. We could have sold those 3 blocks of land for what, $250 each.
Yeah.
So and just made 200,000 instead of going. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and that. Yeah, actually, you would have done. You would have
exactly.
I'm talking about buying my property for what do we pay? $485, and we're selling it for $260. You could have done that exactly the same thing.
Well, this was 2020. So we're not.
Still, the numbers
it is in a more like it's closer to like I'm not no disparagement to Morphettvale. I love Morphettvale. Oh, sorry.
Well, I'm not.
I love Adelaide.
But yeah, it's a way better spot. Like you could have just done, and that's what I struggle with development is like, if the market goes down and you're writing, like a lot of people, like with development, I hear a lot of people like, oh my gosh, I've done this big development.
Most developments don't make sense. Like this one is kind of, yes, we still made a little bit of money, but would you write about the velocity of money as well?
Well, yeah, because I can get my money out. Like I'm going to be like this subdivision deal that I'm talking about. I'm going to get my money back out in 6 to 9 months, and then I can go again, and then I'll go do another one of these, and then I'll go again, and then you've got your deal lined up for 2 years. And this isn't any offense to you, Jeff, obviously, but you've got it there for 2 years, and I've done 3 deals which have netted me 100 each deal. So I've got $300,000 while you're sat there with $170,000, and I'm like, well, yes, I've done a little bit more paperwork, but I'm a lot more money up.
Yeah. I mean, land can take sort of 6 months to sell, so it kind of depends on how. I mean, if you want to sell it quickly, you could pop it. Depends on how much profit you want to make. If you wanted to sort of really do it quick, you could just price it at a really good price, and somebody would buy it off you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. That's why you sell
you're still making money.
House and land people. And this is it. It comes down to supply and demand. Ultimately, property investing is just supply and demand. Oh, yeah, here we go. Depends on the land.
That's what this person said. It depends on the land. I think, Joe, some you may want to sell off quick, others you want to maximize the value. That's what the person said. Like if you're willing to accept a lower amount, then you can sell it pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And not all lots are built the same, right? Yeah, there's a lot of fees.
I can't get any development fees though that makes sense. Yeah, you really the way you have to do it. The secret is, and the only reason this one still didn't make a loss or didn't just break even is because we were able to build 3 instead of 2. Because this particular lot, other people were saying, "Oh, I can only build 2 on it," so they weren't willing to take it on. Whereas this one, we were able to build 3, and because we could build for 200, you can't build for 200 anymore. No way. This type of product would cost $350 now because of 2.5 years later after COVID. So yeah, you have to sort of figure out where that, like similar to Joe's, like where is that sort of, is it somebody who needs to sell? Like you have to find the deal. Like it's about
you make the money on the buy-in.
Yeah, exactly.
Being able to negotiate a deal really well, like makes a match. Like saving $30,000 up front is different to making $30,000 because you've got to pay GST, you've got to pay capital gains tax. Like your $50,000, your $30,000 that you just made is eaten away with expenses, whereas saving $30,000 up front is worth a lot of money. But I think that's a great starting point. I think this is a great foundational episode for people to get a bit of an understanding of what are the types of deals that are out there, what type of things exist. So now what? Now what do we do?
I don't know, Joe. After High Country, Victoria, let's see, land subdivision builds.
Wow.
Now renting land purchase.
Wow.
There you go.
Well done. High Country, Victoria, $185,000 for 1,000 square meters worth of land. Did the subdivision for $25K, built out 560,000, finished renting both, so it was 2 500 lots for $620 a week, and the bank valuation just came back at $675. That is ridiculous. Well done. Well done, whoever that is.
I was just trying to see who that is because I can see on Facebook with the comments.
Well, they should be here. Get them in the seat. Bring them in.
Well, yeah. So that was my. I take it that probably wasn't that person's first. I have to find flip deal, but hold it and get equity. Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot more sense if you can. The deals are out there. Yeah, there definitely are. Like that one that Joe purchased. I mean, you just have to be patient and you have to be really ruthless. Like you can't, if you're sort of trying to make a deal work instead of, if the deal doesn't work, move on. Like go to the next one. Like
that's a fantastic point. So I've got a lot of developer friends that I speak with, and I'm like, hey man, what are your thoughts of this one? And then literally they're driving their car, and he's like, okay, tell me the numbers. And I'm like, well, it's purchase price 520, and you sell the lots for 250. No, doesn't make sense. I'm like, oh, okay. So like, what? Literally, if it doesn't make sense on the back of a napkin, It doesn't make sense. Like you
move on.
can't,
Yeah.
you can't force it. You have to. It has to stack up, and you have to get enough money out of it. Yeah. Sorry. That's my thing is don't try and get too excited and try and get too cute and get all these massive feasibility spreadsheets. It cost me this much to purchase the land. It cost me this much to subdivide it. It cost me this much to sell it. And it cost me this much for infrastructure. And it cost me this much for development. Demolishing. That's it.
And the other thing you have to, the thing that whenever I want to sort of do a development, and the thing you absolutely should be doing is, you can't just rely on what a selling agent is telling you that it's going to sell for. You need to, if there's not enough comparable sales, I would probably I would move on from a deal. If you can't sort of clearly see evidence that what you're proposing it's going to sell for is actually realistic, I wouldn't do the deal. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, 100%.
If it's a flip.
I think that was a good little episode. If people got value out of that, and you're still here, like and subscribe and tick the box and do whatever you have to do to share this around. You got anything else, Jeff?
Nah, I think I'm good, man. I think, knowing what I know now, the next great episode, people are, I think it was great because we sort of saw that, like mine was like Joe sort of, thanks guys. So Joe sort of has a great team around him, and I did have a great team and still, but I think for me, knowing, thanks for all that. But so next sort of like the first Reno sort of, or the first JV deal I did, we broke even. The next one we made money. So I'm thinking the next one's going to be even more profitable. So I think anybody who sort of says that the first deal they knock it out of the park, I'd sort of want to understand what other extenuating circumstances are there. So it's it's all about the journey.
Yeah, and also I think get with people, figure a way that you can add value to somebody else. There are a couple of roles in the development space. There is someone that can find the deal. There is someone that can run the deal. There is the money partner and there is the serviceability partner. So if you can be one of those other partners, you can hijack and jump on the back of someone else and learn the process with those people while you don't necessarily take on such a massive risk. Because exactly like that guy was saying before, he said, hey, the best deal I did was 600,000 and the worst deal I did was sent my granddad bankrupt. So if you got in, like if you only had 25% of that deal that was 600,000, you're making money. So get with the right people, essentially. So many different ways to be a property investor.
Maybe we need I think that was Luke who did the deal. Maybe we need to chat. I mean, as long as he's not a BA. I mean,
is he a buyer's agent? Bloody buyer's agents are everywhere. Bloody buyer's agents.
Like flies on a summer. But no, Joe, thanks for spending appreciate the honesty, lads, and no BS approach. Still want to own 10 properties in 10 minutes. Is that Jordan or is that Mr. De Jong? No, it's Greg. Okay.
We'll give it to you, Greg.
Jordan.
We'll get you 10 properties in 10 minutes. 10 subdivisions. Subdivisions. Okay, guys, let's go out there. Let's go. No, mate, a plumber. Love it. No, matey with a...
matey.
Normal.
Matey. Yeah.
Okay, let's go buy a property. See you guys later. Have a good one.
Thanks, team.